Hi there, I'm Dan Jones. Welcome to Interchange. Thank you so much for joining us. Interesting stuff to talk about again today. First, a crazy proposal to pass out free condoms in Milwaukee public schools. We'll talk about President Obama's plan for a surge in Afghanistan. We will talk about whether Tiger Woods deserves any privacy following his transgressions. And we'll talk about Governor Doyle making Juneteenth Day a legal state holiday. All right, joining us now are Kevin Fischer, aide to Republican State Senator Mary Lozick, and oftentimes a host over at WISN Radio. Joel McNally, newspaper columnist and host of the Morning Magazine program on AM 1290. And Gerard Randall, longtime local job creation expert. Denise Callaway will be back next week. Rick Horowitz along with commentary at the end of the show. An almost unbelievable proposal will be discussed by Milwaukee Public School Board members next week, handing out free condoms at Milwaukee public high schools. Supporters argue that because so many kids are sexually active anyway, we might as well give them condoms to prevent pregnancies and sexually transmitted diseases. Why not put a little energy into teaching the benefits of and encouraging abstinence? That's not an old-fashioned concept. It's absolutely what they should be doing, not throwing their hands up and surrendering and saying, oh, well, they're all having sex anyway.
I was perplexed as to why this was brought up, particularly at a time when the board has certainly its hands full in trying to stave off a takeover. The newspaper had just run a series of articles extolling the virtues of parental involvement in the schools. And then this issue comes up, which to me tends to diminish the responsibility of parents, or certainly the opportunity for the schools to be more engaged with the parents in the education of their children, particularly around human growth and development. And that's what was disappointing to me. It should have occurred in the arena of working with parents to deal with some of these issues that young people are grappling with, particularly in this community where the teen pregnancy rate is so high, and also where the level of communicable diseases is certainly higher than what it should be. The notion that you would just hand condoms out without having the parents more engaged, without having the schools certainly prepare the students, teaching abstinence, for example, engaging perhaps more of the community-based organizations that are getting funding to work with young people around abstinence, like Rosalie Manor, I think is, it's just disappointing that that's the route that they would take. And I would hope that the school board, when they examine this, would see this more as an opportunity to work with parents as opposed to trying to deal with the thing by fiat.
You know, Kevin, I was complaining about this to a friend the other day, and she said, oh, you're so naive. This is how they behave. You might as well deal with it up front.
I love the argument that they're having sex anyway, so why don't you just give them condoms and that'll just solve everything. Well, that's just aiding and abetting and enabling a problem that has exploded. I mean, we've had sex education in our public schools for how long, and it's not working. We've got all these condoms in the world, and yet the problem keeps getting worse. It's not diminishing. Instead of saying, well, you know, here, go have a condom. Okay, here's a condom. We should be giving them the scared straight lecture. We should be telling them that, look, you got 19 million new cases of sexually transmitted diseases every year in America alone. 25% of those are to American teenagers. Condoms are not guaranteed to work. Look, kid, you mess around, even with a condom, you face chronic depression, perpetual pain, infertility, any form of cancer involving a bodily part, even death. That's what we should be telling our kids. Instead, we aid, we abet, we enable, and we say, here's a condom because, hey, that's worked, right? We don't have any kids getting pregnant. We don't have any kids getting sexually transmitted disease. It's like saying, you know, kid, you're sexting. Here's a cell phone. We know you're smoking. Here's a cigarette lighter. We know you're having sex, go have a condom. It's ridiculous, especially, as you say, at a time when the school board is under fire and the whole school system may be taken over by Madison. It's mind-boggling. But now we have Joel McNally who says, go ahead, let them have all the condoms they want, because that'll help.
Are we being naive?
You're not being naive. You're being ridiculous. You're being so wrong. This is a public health issue. Everything that Kevin and Gerard just said cries out for condoms in the schools. Absolutely does. The most shocking statistic that was included in that story that reported all this is that they traced sexual behavior among high school students and even middle school students between 2003 and 2009. And sexual activity is increasing, but you know what's decreasing? The use of condoms. While sexual activity is increasing, the use of condoms is decreasing. That means more teenage pregnancy. That means more communicable diseases. That means possibly deadly diseases. That is a public health issue. And for you to say, well, let's buy, we sure don't want them to have condoms. No, we sure do if they are engaging in sexual activity. And this also, the whole idea of parental involvement, that is a wonderful idea. That is a terrific idea. But you know where it's a terrible idea? It's a terrible idea among young girls who are going to get thrown out of their houses if they reveal to their parents they're engaging in sexual activity. That's why they won't go to their parents. It's a terrible idea if they are in fact having sexual activity with a parent and they need protection and they need to talk to some outside adult to get help. That is where most sexual predators activity takes place, is within the family, within the home. It's not, creeps on the street snatching children off our streets. It's taking place right in the home. This is a serious public health problem, and you guys are going to sit over there and say, we sure don't want our kids to have condoms. We sure do. If they are engaging in sexual activity, they need to have condoms, and they also need to talk to some adult who can counsel them. If they can't get it from their parents, if they're terrified to go to their parents because of what might happen to them, there needs to be the schools have played that role in so many parts of our children's lives. Some of the crises they're going through, the tragedies they're going through. The one place that sometimes when they can't go to their parents, they can go to the schools, and there actually are people there who can help them.
They shouldn't be having sex at all.
The reason why this, abstinence has been crammed into it absolutely doesn't.
If you don't have sex, you're not going to get pregnant, Joel.
Abstinence fails more often than condoms do, I'll tell you, because children who have been, in fact, in all abstinence classes, it has actually been shown scientifically they're more likely to have sex without condoms than to have safe sex.
Well, I'd love for you to introduce...
And part of it is what the irresponsible thing you just did, Kevin, to try to scare kids from using condoms. Say, well, they won't work. You could get...
They don't. There's no guarantee they're going to work. And I agree with you. There's a public health issue. I rattled off all those stats. You got millions of kids getting sexually transmitted diseases, so it is a public health matter. But you're not going to make matters better by giving them free condoms without parental consent.
You don't want to deal with it. You don't want to deal with the public health problem. Condoms overwhelmingly work. The number that fail is so infinitesimal. If you scare kids away from using condoms, that's one of the most irresponsible things you can do.
No, that's actually a good thing.
You're actually putting lives at risk.
Because you give a kid a condom, it's like saying, go fool around.
Nonsense. You don't have to talk kids into being interested in sex. They are interested.
All right, next topic. Let's talk for just a few minutes about President Obama's plan to increase troop levels in Afghanistan. I think it shocked a few people, even though he's doing exactly what he said he would do during his campaign.
Well, he said that he would focus on the Afghan war, that was the war that he believed was the more important, that
the noble cause.
The noble cause, national security interest certainly needed to be protected. But then I don't think he listened to his generals. The solution that he came up with doesn't strike me as a credible military solution as much as it appears to be political brokering. And I'm not naive to believe that political decision-making plays a big part in this. It's a costly war. The commitment of additional troops at a time when our budget is already stressed is a huge commitment, huge additional commitment. I'm certain he recognizes that. But what he was asked to provide and what he ultimately provided seems to me to be shortchanging the military and inconsistent given what he stated his objective would be at the time that he decided to put this war as one of his top priorities.
I was surprised he even allowed that many troops to go.
Actually, I was, the thing that Gerard's disappointed with, that there's actually some deadline to start pulling troops out of this war, is the only thing I liked about that speech. I hated the fact that this president is committing 30,000 more troops to a war that's been going on 9 years. It is good that we have an intelligent president who actually took some time to talk to experts and create a strategy. But to me, the only really good part of that strategy was an end game, was an idea that there should be an exit strategy. This is not just a blank check for the military, whatever they want. This is not an open-ended commitment that after 9 years, we don't want to set some deadline for how long we are going to be in another country that is not our country, occupying that country. He made a strong case that there's a more serious case to be made for the war in Afghanistan, certainly, than the war in Iraq, which never had to take place. That in fact, the attacks of 9/11 came out of this country when the Taliban was in charge, and the Taliban is still a threat there. He made a strong case that there's a more serious reason there. But this president, after 8 years, you know, there were only 32,000 troops in Afghanistan when Barack Obama took office as president. And now that it's going to be with this additional 30,000 and a 30,000 more who just kind of creeped up over there over this past year, we're going to have almost 100,000 in that country. We have to set some deadlines. We have to say we can't commit ourselves forever to military objectives. We have sent troops, and think about the cost. $1 million a troop, they're saying, for a single soldier, $1 million to commit to this war. The sad thing is clearly the military is being overstretched. We are sending people back again and again and again, 2 or 3 or 4 deployments back into military combat. You know, you make it home alive and your family is grateful and they hug you and love you, and a few months later they send you back to the same place and into the same harm and into the same danger. We have to set deadlines.
Let me be clear. I do believe that the time that he took to make the decision was an appropriate amount of time. I don't have a disagreement with that. I disagree with the conclusion that he made, that ultimately he didn't pay that much attention to what his generals were recommending.
I think General McChrystal should be fired. He publicly put pressure on the President of the United States. Said, you know, why aren't you sending 40,000 more troops? That's his commander-in-chief. If he has advice for the President, he should give that advice privately.
Doing that.
He should not go out publicly and put this pressure on the President.
Do you think Obama thinks this war is winnable? Does he truly believe this war is winnable?
You didn't hear the word victory mentioned once in that speech the other night. He doesn't want to win the war.
There is no victory there. What's the victory there? Define it.
Well, if you'd allow me to answer, I will tell you.
After 9 years, what's the victory?
Actually, it's closer to 7. Is it winnable? Who knows? It's certainly not winnable in 18 months. Not when you've had problems in that country since day one. This was not a speech to try to find military victory. This was, as you referenced, a political speech. He's doing this for strictly political reasons. Now, nobody likes what he's doing. Nobody. But at the same time, he has hoodwinked the right because he hasn't pulled the plug. The left, he's appeased because, okay, we're sending more troops, which they don't like. This is an escalation. But you have this end game, which plays right into the enemy's hands, by the way. So it was incoherent in a lot of respects. We're coming, but we're going. We're sending 30,000 warriors, but they're not going to engage in any war. We're going to build a nation, but no one's been able to build this nation since the beginning. Since the beginning of civilization.
Why are we committing more troops?
And we're sending more troops, and we're hoping that they will convince the Afghan people to do what we don't want to do over there, and that is go after the Taliban. So by extrapolating this another 18 months, he gets Afghanistan off the front page, allowing him to go ahead with his plans to socialize medicine and fight global warming. And then in July 2011, after the midterm elections are over, he can check out the scope, he can look at the lay of the land and determine, now what should I do in Afghanistan to get reelected? He doesn't want to win, and nobody knows how to win in Afghanistan.
So
not President Obama,
so
and not the right.
An open-ended war.
Cutting and running and telling the enemy the day you're going to leave, that is not very smart military strategy.
All right, switch gears for just a minute. We've got to talk about Tiger Woods and his alleged extracurricular activities. I don't care really what any adult does behind closed doors as long as it's legal, but when this superstar athlete and millionaire public figure says he wants some privacy, I think that's laughable. I don't think he deserves any privacy at all.
Why not? Because he's a celebrity, because he's rich, because he's a millionaire, because he's the greatest golfer on the face of the earth.
Those are all the reasons you won't get privacy.
Yeah, it is all the reasons. It is the celebrity culture that, and it's ugly watching people go after him. Ryan Longwell, who lives in that community, says, his wife is a blonde who wears sunglasses because it's Florida, and every time she goes out there, helicopters buzzing her.
Ryan Longwell's wife?
Yeah, right. They live in that community. They absolutely do. It is. I think it's a bit absurd. I know that he made it worse himself by not coming public and trying to stay out of the public. There wasn't any way he was going to be able to kill the story. There wasn't any way he was going to avoid dealing with those issues. He needed good public relations advice, and I bet he got it because he's the richest guy on earth, and he must have been surrounded by the best PR people, but he must have decided himself
to go in the bunker for 3 days
he wouldn't follow their advice. But truthfully, the reason he's famous, the reason he is one of the richest people on the planet now is because he is of his skill as a golfer.
Plus, he was squeaky clean up to
well, that helped get some of the commercial endorsements, and so far they've still stood with him. But mostly it is that he is the greatest golfer on earth, and
really likable guy.
And he controlled that image, and he couldn't control this, and there'll be some flack, and he'll lose some money over it. But I don't think it has a thing to do with who he really is. There are all these superstar athletes who can control their images. We have pretty good impressions of them, but we really don't know them, and we sure don't know him because he has controlled it very, very strongly up to now.
Do you feel bad for him?
I feel badly that he hadn't been able to control his passions. Look, he just had a baby. Baby's 9 months old.
I think so. And a 2-year-old beside.
2-year-old daughter. And this affair supposedly has been going on for 3 years. Right, for 3 years.
Come on.
And who was the first one to run to the tabloids? The girlfriend. This notion that he's going to get privacy, even if he believes he's entitled to it, who betrayed him first? The one that he ran out to betray his wife with. And that's the piece that is probably disturbing to me. It was bad decision-making on his part. And I think it was a cavalier disregard for his family and especially those young children that somewhere along the line are going to have to grapple with this too, probably at a later stage in life, no doubt. But these are the kinds of things that lead to Hollywood-style breakups and nasty front-page tabloid revelations that just seem to continue on. I also think if he got good advice, he certainly didn't follow it with regards to how to deal with the press.
What advice
and that was another indication of bad decision-making on his part.
But when you make your millions based on your public image, I don't think you deserve a break from the public.
Well, even if you do, and you're not going to get it. You can't have it both ways. You can't have all the public adulation, which leads to millions of dollars, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and all that love and respect and kindness, and
avoid the scrutiny.
Right, and then expect to be left alone. And this isn't the 60s anymore when JFK could have all the transgressions he wanted and the press knew about it and just kept quiet about it. Feel sorry for him? No. Let me cut right to the chase. You put it rather nicely and diplomatically. It was stupid what he did. It was immoral what he did, and he was a pig. Imagine he thought that he could have his socialite girlfriend in New York and his his hottie cocktail waitress in Los Angeles and for 3 years, and nobody would find out about it. And he was doing it while his lovely wife, who is very attractive. I've had many male friends of mine this week say, what in the world was he thinking? He's doing this while she's pregnant. Now, having said all that, he's going to be fine because we tend to forget or forgive. Everyone involved is going to be fine. It's really, somebody's going to get millions of dollars from it. Probably the future ex
Every
Mrs.
woman
Woods.
that was involved in the situation will get millions.
He's offering her millions to stay with him, and she's like kind of counter-negotiating. well, I'll take this to stay with you. I mean, average American people don't live like that. But everybody's going to be okay, and you know what? This will be around for a little bit, but only until the next scandal happens involving a celebrity, and it's probably coming very, very soon.
All right, last topic. How about Governor Jim Doyle making Juneteenth Day a state holiday this past week? It's a celebration of the day back in 1865 when the last of the slaves learned that they were free. It's probably not politically correct to say so, but the last thing we need is another holiday that most people just don't care about, Joel.
I don't know why this is on our agenda, to tell you the truth, because it doesn't matter much, and I say that in a sad way because I think this was Governor Jim Doyle making a very symbolic gesture to the black community in Milwaukee. The truth is, the black community in Milwaukee has treated Juneteenth Day with a lot of respect and created a celebration here on an annual basis, much more so than most cities around the country. And this was simply Jim Doyle coming into the community. This is the same Jim Doyle who wants to kill the elected school board and take power away from the community to run its own schools. But he comes in and signs a bill saying it's a state holiday.
That's all he did.
Of course, that doesn't mean...
That's all he did was use his pen.
Yeah, that doesn't mean anything. We're not going to close anything. It's not an official holiday for anybody getting off.
It's not a paid state holiday, and I think that is important. I personally don't have my nose out of joint about this. I think it's unnecessary. I think it was more pandering. It's unnecessary.
It is, and
you really don't
exactly
need it. It's going to amount to a day off, but the populace looks at this and say, why? It's just another perk for people in the public sector who don't get the problems that the private sector is going through right now. Had it been a paid state holiday, then I think this would have been a big controversy. But it's unnecessary, especially when I think back when Republicans held both houses in the legislature, and State Senator Sheila Harsdorf made the point, look, we're the only state in the country where Veterans Day is not a state holiday. And she tried to push that bill through, but it didn't go anywhere. Imagine that.
10 seconds. Pandering?
Yes. Ditto to everything that's just been said already. Couldn't have said it better.
But I'll take June 19th off. If you want to give Kevin Fischer the day off, I'll take it.
All right, back to the president's speech and some of the reaction to it in Washington and elsewhere. It's all got Rick Horowitz in a reflective mood. Rick.
Don't you just hate it when your own words come back to bite you? You sweat and you squirm. At least you do if you're being honest with yourself. You try to make what you said then line up with what you're saying now. Sometimes you can pull it off. Then there's Afghanistan. We're going deeper into Afghanistan, President Obama said the other night, at least for a while. And lots of people who are ordinarily allies of his, don't like it. Here's the problem, though. Some of those very same people spent plenty of time bashing the Bush administration for ignoring Afghanistan. I know, I was one of them. It wasn't just that the war in Iraq was based on faulty, if not falsified, premises, we said. It wasn't just that it was poorly planned and terribly managed, slow to react, slow to adapt. That wasn't the worst of it, we said. Iraq distracted us from the real problem, Afghanistan. That was where Osama bin Laden and al-Qaeda were still hiding and still plotting. Every soldier we sent and dollar we spent on Iraq, we said, was manpower and money, expertise and effort that didn't go into Afghanistan and its wobbly nuclear neighbor Pakistan. Mike Mullen, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, told Congress pretty much the same thing this week. The word he used was starved. The war in Iraq starved our effort in Afghanistan, he said, militarily, diplomatically, politically, training, you name it. We've been saying that for years. Invading Iraq was taking our eye off the ball, we said. Iraq was the wrong war. Afghanistan was the right war, the necessary war. And Barack Obama had said it too while he was running for the White House and even after he got there. So why all the surprise, all the dismay when he acted on that judgment? Now, we can argue that conditions have changed since we said what we said, but not if the biggest change is simply that the president is no longer named George Bush. You want to argue that things in Afghanistan are so much better now that the extra troops are unnecessary, or so much worse that they're pointless? Go ahead. You want to argue that the Afghan government is so corrupt that we don't have a reliable partner on the ground there? Fine. Or that there are better ways to spend those billions of dollars, beefing up our own homeland security, our ports, our mass transit systems? Or that we just don't have extra billions to spend? That unemployment and an exploding national debt are more dangerous to us than anything Al-Qaeda is likely to cook up? Fine. Then make those arguments. Some of them might even be convincing. But don't take everything we've been saying for all this time, and try to toss it down the memory hole. Not if we're being honest with ourselves.
Thank you, Rick, and thank you so much for watching. Stay warm and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
I've been in the right place, but it must have been the wrong time. I'd have said the right thing, but it must have used the wrong line. I've been on the right trip, but I must have used the wrong car. Head is in a bad place, and I wonder what's good for. I've been in the right place, but it must have been the wrong time. My head is in a bad place, but I'm having such a good time. I've been running, trying to get hung up in my mind. Just got to give myself a good talking to this time. Just need a little brain salad surgery. I got to cue my insecurity. That I've been in the wrong place, but it must have been the right time.